What is narcissism? Narcissism is a condition. It is it is an experience that some people have, and sometimes you get to experience somebody that has narcissism. So it is they say it's like a personality disorder. So this is my understanding of it, is that it is essentially based on a very fragile sense of self. So this is the kind of person who cannot take any kind of criticism, because if they were to take, their who they are is so fragile that it's like if they were to take criticism, they would break. They're a person who is on the edge, and it's hard to say exactly why. It is a thing that it is seen in men and women. I have become increasingly more aware of narcissism in my life. I have seen it in family members and in friends, particularly people that I'm quite close to, in men and women. And it is, yeah, it is. I swear. So it's like here we are in COVID. Well, it's like, the other pandemic, narcissism. It's extremely common, but if you don't know the signs to look for, it's hard to identify because it is just such an outlook, a way of being that is very different to how, say, a person who is a little more heart-based conducts themselves. And so it's like, a person who is like if you when you start learning about this stuff, one of the great places to learn about it is YouTube, because there are psychologists and things that are on there, and people with letters after their names, and they can say, okay, well, this is top 10 signs you're dealing with a narcissist, right? So you can't just go around diagnosing everybody, but you're this and you're that. You have to be very careful doing that. You know what they say about pointing fingers. And so it's like, but you can do this, and it's not like, be like, oh, that person's just a jerk, and it's like, well, it's not a very scientific term. This isn't very good terminology to just say, oh, this person's using some vulgar word. It doesn't really help anything. But like it or not, there is a certain group of behaviors that is understood, that when a person is exhibiting this kind of a mentality, this approach to life and how they deal with things, it is known as narcissism. So like there's a scale of these things, and it goes all the way from just being really selfish, and then there's a person who's what is it, there's like what do you call it, there's a sociopath, and then there's like a borderline, and then there's like a narcissist, and then a psychopath, like all the way from caring about how others feel, and ensuring that you are really taking them into account, to having absolutely no care at all about, it's just all about you. The only thing that matters, it's one of the things that ways to identify a narcissist is like, you might say something. So this, like, you have to be careful with this, because there's all of these factors, right? And it's like, if everybody has like some of this to a degree, but when it's to like a huge degree, that's when it's like, wow, you're dealing with something pretty serious here. And you have to be really careful with it, because these people are typically very intelligent, everybody's intelligent, but they are manipulative as well, and they know how to play people. Whereas like if you're not a person who plays other people, then the behavior, it's odd. For myself, it's like I just I project this. I assume that everybody self-reflects on everything that they do to make sure that they're never hurting anybody's feelings, and so that you're not responsible for taking advantage of somebody or a situation. That's this is my problem. But some people don't exactly behave on that premise. It's more like about using people and getting things. Everybody, you can use people as a means to an end. And that's can be quite challenging, especially if you are a person who is an empath, such as myself, or which is a person who feels deeply. And it's just kind of my disposition where I always look for the beauty in people, and I tend to, or I suppose I overlook. I can overlook certain other factors. Of course, though, I have learned not to. I've learned how to identify these qualities and recognize them for what they are. And it's tough because it's like, you don't want to see a person in that light. You don't want to label them and think that this is a person that has like a very extreme attitude, like the way that they conduct themselves, their outlook is questionable, to say the least. And so it's something with, so yeah, like a narcissist, you can you could tell them about something, and then it's like you didn't even say anything, and they just start talking about themselves, and they don't ever really ask you questions about you because it's not really important, and they get very bored if you are talking about yourself or about something else, because the attention is supposed to be on them, because they are very important, and it needs to be that way. It's something, I've dated a few narcissistic women, and I came to learn, at one point I was like, I'm doing all of this stuff. It's just like, this isn't fair. And it's like, let's make some sort of a chart to make sure that everything is happening fair, so that we share the responsibility. And it was just like, no, don't do that. It was like, this was the like kind of the final straw. It's just like, what do you mean no? So it's not supposed to be fair. What am I to you? You know what I mean? Like, what is this that's going on? I'm not your slave kind of deal. We're equals. We are partners. We work together, and it's like, to do with like arguments too. It's just like, it's, it's all about being right. And it's like, and if you catch a narcissist in doing something wrong, they'll find a way to turn it around and make it like you did something wrong. And it's like, it's very odd behavior. Like whereas like some people would just say, hey, yeah, right, you're right, I did that, I'm sorry about that, and then everything is forgiven. But with the narcissist, it's just like diverting, any kind of blame or any kind of having to accountability or responsibility, and just firing back. And it's like, it's very odd behavior. If you don't know what to look for, and you have to put this pieces together. Another thing to do also is like, a term is like gaslighting. So these people, sometimes they're feeling a certain way, and they will like push you into a corner. Why did you do that? What's wrong with you? What were you thinking? And it's just like, like you're just like, and then you don't know how to answer that because this person's attacking you, and then eventually you're backed into a corner, and then you explode, and then be like, look at you, look at the way you're behaving, look at you're freaking out. And it's just like, you like gaslighting me. And it's like, there's also this thing where it's like, they're very hypocritical. So it's like, they'll be like, oh, hey, well, I'll be like, oh yeah, talking about some past relationship. And then they'll be like, all you ever do is talk about your ex. And it's like, no, I don't. But I mean, I understand if that's, I will certainly make an effort to not do that if it feels uncomfortable, right? And then they will turn around and like, sometimes in the same sentence, or like, very shortly, and then they'll do the exact same thing. Hypocrite, and they'll start talking about their ex and about this and that. And it's just like, you got to be kidding me. And if you call them out on it, then like I said, it will get turned around and thrown in your face, and you will be made to feel small. And then you will apologize. And like, there's this thing called love bombing that they do. They'll tell you everything that you want to hear when they're in the process of sort of getting into your life, and they will tell you everything that you want to hear. And these people, they seem really nice. Certainly in social situations, you just don't see this. They put on the face that is required, but behind closed doors, everything changes, and all of a sudden there's this different energy, and it's just like you don't know what's going on, but like you want to make it work. If you're that type of a person in a relationship, you think it's just like, okay, well, you do your best and I'll do my best, and we accept each other for who we are, and we express ourselves and we grow as a couple. It's supposed to be a beautiful thing. We'll reflect things to each other. We will help show each other our blind spots so that we can be more aware of certain things that are outside of our field of view, and then we can be better people and function better in society and in all relationships. I mean, that seems to be like a good idea, but it's not how everybody approaches it. And then there's another thing too. It's I don't know, I'll say it's like called the crazy eyes. It's like when this person, say like if you start to recognize this, or there's certain things which lead up to it, where it's like all of a sudden, if you anger them in a way that just really gets them, they get these crazy eyes where there's just like filled with rage. And it's called like flying into a narcissistic rage. And it's just like, one of the, they can be foaming at the mouth and just freak out and just say all kinds of like really hurtful things. Like they're not looking to reconcile. They're going for blood, And so it is a very, very distinct type of behavior that is, and it's like, so because it's complex, and because it's not them, it's you, right? And so it's like, because there is no taking responsibility. So it's like they say, it's like if, like, you're probably best to just walk away. If you don't know how to deal with somebody that has narcissistic personality disorder, do not point it out to them, or they will fly into a rage. And you don't want that. You also don't want to and it's like, so if you don't know, if you don't have the tools, just cut your losses and walk away, because like it's so deep and complex that it is beyond you fixing them. That is not going to happen, basically. And so it's like, it is a choice. It is something that they have to come to within themselves. I mean, it's possible to point the way, but the steps need to be taken. There has to be sufficient motivation for a person to take the steps to overcome something that is likely to have started in childhood. This is, so it's deep, it's been ingrained. There's a help group that is called Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers. Because it's like when you are brought up in this type of an environment, it's like it's normal, and it's like it's okay to have this power struggle, this kind of like, and it's weird, but it's like, and that becomes the norm, and you think that that's how the same premise that other people are operating on, when it is not. And so it needs to be handled very, very delicately. It is a volatile situation. That's why I say cut your losses and get out of there. And it's like, and you have to do that. You have to be powerful enough yourself to walk away. Because, and what they say is like, someone can only ride your back if you're bent over, and what you allow to continue will. So it's really tricky, and at the same time recognize that this is a person that is traumatized. Something happened in childhood, most likely, because I'm pretty sure it relates back to childhood, because if the parents had given them the tools, the right education, and in a healthy environment, then they would have been able to deal with whatever happened later in life. But this is something that took place when they were very young. It was something that they were subject to. And it's like we're all brought into this world under the same conditions, which is blind. Nobody gets to choose what environment they're subject to, what they're taught as truth or shown as way, as the example that their parents were given. It's not about what you say, it is the behavior. And it's pretty tricky, because, and so this is a person who has had has wires crossed, and it's just like they have a way of going about things. And some people, I think with men, it's like if they have money, they're able to breeze through life without really having to do a whole lot of reflecting, because you have a free pass. With women, it's based on looks. If you have these good looks, then you can just go from you can use people from guy to guy. Everybody wants a piece of you. Everybody, women, wow, guys, wow. And it's just like you have this free ticket through life. So that's got to be like the most addictive thing ever, like more than any drug, than anything, a free ticket, a free pass, just like attention's on you. I mean, what a neat thing, but also, oh boy, what a dangerous, scary thing, because it can develop into something like narcissism. Feeding off of the attention that you get from others, and using it in a way that just serves you without taking others into account. I mean, it's a tricky situation. The more I learn about it, and it's just like I've started to really identify that I'm not a psychologist. I am me, though, in any ways, and I will do me. And so I have, when you start to really understand some of these behaviors, and you really think about the nature of some of these scenarios as they're playing out in your life, it's just like, wow, so you thought that this was okay. And it's like, no, well, that's not how I myself would behave. So, for you to behave in that way, it says something. It's like, this is crazy. And I tell you, you don't ever want to call a narcissist crazy. That is not okay. They say that narcissists, there's two people in their life. There's people who are submissive, and there are people who are supporters. And if you don't fit into one of those two categories, you're gone, right? Because that's the only way that it is. Yeah, there is no criticism allowed. I mean, constructive criticism. I don't mean like being rude or judgmental, but it's like, we reflect things to each other. It's a relationship. It's a two-way thing. It's not, so... Yeah, really tricky, and very, very common. Like I said, I know, as I've become more aware of the signs, I'm starting to see it, everywhere. Like I said, the other pandemic. And it is, of course, to do with the ego. This is not the heart, which is acceptance, surrender, humility, trust, that kind of thing, So, and it's not saying that these people are bad people, at all. People that I've known that have suffered from it, it's like they know, but they're not able to put their finger on it because it's so big, and it's just like, that would be a lot to take on board. It's like, does a jerk know he's a jerk? I don't know. And even if he did, what would you do about it? How would you approach it, right? but then it's like, is it in even in your nature to think about that? Because that's not what a person, like a inconsiderate person does, is self-reflect and like really look at who they are and how they treat other people. So yeah, it's really tricky. And that's why it's a delicate situation, and it requires a lot of compassion. It requires patience. It requires compassion and maturity. And I mean, like, on the part of a person who, once you start to recognize that there's people in your life that are exhibiting these behaviors, you need to be the bigger person and not challenge this person who is struggling, clearly showing signs of struggle. You need to not challenge them. You need to not try to educate them, fix them, help them. You can be there for them, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a tough one. I wanted to understand this, and I'm not saying that I understand, but I have an understanding now, and it has really changed my life. When I first became aware of when somebody treated me really poorly, when the truth came out and somebody like explained it to me, and it's like, it was just, yeah, it was like I lost my faith in humanity. Because I just couldn't believe that another person would treat another person in that way, to so blatantly disregard their feelings and their, like, just be so inconsiderate and so not caring. And yeah, I ended up, that's how I ended up in Mexico, because I was just so lost. But then when I met my Colombian friend, and she, yeah, my faith was restored there. The universe had my back. And it's great. I mean, and that's the thing, is like the universe got me there to that beach, right? I miss her. And yeah, but yeah, um, yeah, it's a tricky one. The old narcissism. Um, what else? I think that there was one more thing. Yeah, it was just that it's like so common. Yeah, with men and women, and just how it's hard to believe. But it's a thing. So you know what? I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's if I can't remember, it's not meant to be, and I accept that. I trust that. It's his heart forward. I trust that my heart will speak everything that it needs to. And so yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. And I hope, no, it's none of my business whether this helps somebody or not. My words, my experiences, it is what it is, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. Yeah. So take care out there. It's tough for everybody. Don't judge. Compassion, patience, maturity, that's the way to handle it. Calm, centered, grounded, and also boundaries. That the key to self-love is having healthy boundaries. You cannot say that you love yourself if you allow somebody else to walk all over you.